Recite with me the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And we'll move on to item number 3 on the agenda, and that's public comment. I didn't have anybody approach the chair or the clerk. And so we will move on to item number 4, operational functions required by statute, ordinance, resolution, or policy, and a discussion and possible action by the executive committee, recommendations to the Rules Review Committee from the executive committee for items to be taken up in Rules Review. Per our board rules, Rules Review will be appointed, or the recommendations to the board will be made this month, and they're up for board approval in the June meeting, and then the vice chair will take the lead on chairing that committee on the Rules Review and work on those items that have been brought to his attention, the recommended from us to move forward to look at, and have them then do their work and bring back the recommendations to the exec committee. And then they'll be up for adoption at the new organizational meeting in April of 2026. So I wanted to put this on there for opportunity for anybody that had any items to provide that input, at least to the vice chair, so that he has a little bit of time to understand and schedule the meetings for Rules Review. So open it up for suggestions. Everybody's on mute. Vice Chair Dickinson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have received some emails since probably going back to September from several supervisors that I'm keeping a log of. I've spoken with Corporation Counsel about that as well, and he had some recommendations to make as well. So the list is already being prepared. I just wanted to make that general statement that there already are some items that are being built. But if someone doesn't want to say it here, if they want to send an email, feel free to do that as well.
Sure. I think one of the things that I think is at least worth looking at is potentially moving to one committee meeting by the full board instead of 2. I think we've seen that now we've had 2 already this year, this term, that have only one meeting with voting taking place at the same time. I see there's positives and negatives, but I think it's something at least that the Rules Review can take a look at and come up with a recommendation. That would be one suggestion that I have. I think it behooves us to look at efficiencies and if there is some cost savings, which there would be because of mileage potentially. Other ideas or other suggestions? Supervisor Robinson, please.
I would just request that maybe in the context of our review that we look at what Atolos Law Firm prepared for the Wisconsin Counties Association as a template, just to compare our rules to what would be best management practices or standard operating procedures. So just look at the WCA drafts.
Okay. Other suggestions? Okay, very good. We'll then move on to discussion, education presentation and committee discussion, the discussion on chapters 6, 10, 11, and 12. And we have with us multiple people. We have Dennis Lawrence from North Central Regional Planning. We have Lori Miskimmons from CPZ. We also have Jeff Pritchard from CPZ, and also, is it Christie?
Oh, Christian.
Christian, excuse me, also is with us. So I will turn it over to Lori, please.
Thank you, Chair Gibbs. Chair Gibbs only gave me 2 hours to go through these, so.
Yep, absolutely.
No, because we didn't get a chance to meet last month on these chapters, we do have 4 chapters before you this month. I think the big common questions as we go through the drafts continue to be, if you see updates or data that you think we're missing or need to bring in, just bringing that to our attention. You can do that here. You can send us an email. Also taking a close look at those issues, goals, and objectives, and just kind of seeing if you think we're headed in the right direction in terms of trying to get those issues down, what you think of the goals and objectives. And the question that we're always putting out to you is, as you think about the goals and objectives, what is the county's role? Where do you think we can have influence or impact? So if we need to update those goals or objectives to reflect that better. So I will quickly go through each of the chapters. I'm not going to spend too much time on the different data updates, but I'll try and highlight a few things and then spend more time on the issues, goals, and objectives. So the first one is Chapter 6, the Water Resources chapter. The big thing with Chapter 6 is we have a ton of groundwater data that we will be bringing into this from the sampling we did last year. So there's a lot of placeholders still in here because we're still analyzing some of that data and bringing it in. Some other updates that we are bringing into the chapter, and as advised to us by ERC to get these things in there as well, is we're bringing in some more information about the stormwater quality management that we do in the county and some of the stuff that we do with salt and salt reduction efforts within the county. So making sure that we're accounting for that in our comprehensive plan. Get to the issues. And then I did want to note, we did put a quick snapshot in there of some initial results from the Marathon County well samples that we did, and we did put a couple notes in there just to let you all know that you'll see when you look on page 15 that lead came back as a contaminant in 15% of those samples, but in our follow-up testing we actually found that was predominantly related to plumbing. So when we're going back with the homeowners and encouraging them to get tested again, it's usually related to the plumbing in their house. So lead we don't think is as much of an issue as maybe the initial test results were showing. It's more related to the plumbing. But we are finding when we go back and follow up with households near those with nitrate concentration that we are showing a lot of houses around that initial well that was contaminated are also popping up with a nitrate contaminant. So we are thinking possibly that number of 46% is lower or higher, will end up being higher, I should say, once we do additional sampling. So. As it relates to the issues in the water resources chapter, the 2 that we've outlined thus far are an issue just to protect water quality at a regional level with a set of common goals. I think for us at CPZ, we're constantly having conversations around water quality, and there's a lot of different areas or sectors that affect our water quality, and what we're seeing more and more is that we just all need to sort of coalesce around the fact that it's a priority to everyone. Everyone can have a positive impact in making water quality better. So we just need a regional approach in terms of how we address our water quality issues and work towards a common goal of reducing pollutants in our groundwater. The other thing that came out of our 2024 well sampling efforts is that there's definitely a need for us to continue to do education and ongoing monitoring in the community. I think the thing we found most often when we were trying to sample during the groundwater study last year was that people did not realize that they should get their well tested on a regular basis. So CPZ and the health department have been working more collaboratively in the last year to come up with approaches for how we can continue to educate folks on getting their well sampled on a regular basis. A couple other issues we identified to develop further include that we think we should probably include something in there about PFAS. That's going to continue to grow and be an evolving issue for our county. Talk about an issue related to preparedness for maintaining clean water in the event of a natural disaster or contamination concerns. And then some issues we're seeing sometimes with water quality and its impacts on tourism and recreation, and then also water quantity concerns. The goal in Chapter 6, the water resources in Marathon County are of the highest quality for the safety of residents and the health of aquatic ecosystems and are protected from damaging behaviors like overuse and pollution. The 4 objectives that we have drafted right now are protect and enhance the quantity and quality of potable groundwater and potable surface water supplies, coordinate with regional partners to promote efforts that protect municipal and private well water recharge areas, reduce agricultural non-point runoff to surface water in effort to reduce impaired river miles in Marathon County, and manage lake and reservoir resources to balance concerns of shoreline residents, users, local businesses, and protect natural resources. So I'll pause there for Chapter 6 to see if there's any comments or questions.
Comments or questions or recommendations of stuff that need to be addressed? Supervisor Robinson, please.
Just as it relates to the PFAS, I would, there's a lot of information which I'd be happy to share with you and your staff relative to both impacts on the Wisconsin River and in communities. I think Marathon County has more communities affected than most other counties. But I wonder if we should have a section in there relative to encouraging owners, property owners, to do periodic well sampling.
Yeah, we can build that out for sure.
Absolutely. Other questions, other comments? Supervisor Draybeck, please.
I was just wondering, on the PFAS testing for wells, is there any way that they could be like getting some money for that? It's pretty expensive to get your well tested for PFAS, I believe. Is there any way they can just try to check an area and see if there's a problem there? Just a thought.
I'm not, at this point, I don't have up-to-date information on what testing funds are available for PFAS, but we can look into that and obviously add that as a resource to the document, unless, Jeff, do you have any you need the mic.
Okay. Just a second, John. Jeff, please.
There we go. I believe that municipalities that have a potable water supply for the general public, they're required to test for PFAS, and they report that. I think the problem area would be private individuals with private wells and having funding available for those individuals to test for PFAS. So maybe there's a funding mechanism out there.
Supervisor Robinson?
Well, on that issue, I know the governor had earmarked some of the ARPA dollars for private well sampling, and there's discussion taking place in Madison relative to the release of the $125 million in the trust fund, as well as the state budget that would earmark funds for sampling of private wells on properties that have a reasonable likelihood to be impacted by PFAS. But none of them are in the budget moving forward at this time, but it might be something we might want to track.
Yeah, we can keep an eye on that for sure, so.
Okay, other discussion? All right.
Chapter 10.
Chapter
So
10,
Chapter
please.
10, the Education, Workforce Development, and Economic Development chapter. A couple of things to note as it relates to the updates here. We did, Jeff handed out an updated version. The one in your packet still had some old data. We started with some 2020 data points in the working draft, but went back for a lot of that data and tried to resource stuff between 2022 and 2025, just because we felt that some of the 2020 data as it relates to economic development might not be the best pulse point for updating our information. So the paper copy in front of you highlights, I believe in green, some of the tables that we did go through and pull more recent data than 2020. So that is a work in progress, and certainly you'll still see some other areas where we are double checking to see if we have more recent data. Let's see. We also updated the employers table to include things like Marathon County in the paper copy we just handed out. One of the things we talked about adding to this chapter was definitely inserting a section on childcare, just making sure that we're addressing that that's become a challenge for our region. Then as it relates to, I guess I'll ask somebody from RPC to go ahead and explain the local quotient bubbles for us. So, and that's on page 18 and 19 of the chapter. So.
Yeah, so we included a section on location quotient. That's something we put in our economic development chapters. And really what that is it looks at how concentrated a specific industry is within a region, and then we compare that to concentration nationwide. So it just gives a good picture of how strong an industry is. So we just have some data in there that look at the different industries, and you can kind of get a picture of the strongest industries within the county.
And then on page 22 of the chapter, we also identified that we would like to add a little bit more about the growth in outdoor regional tourism in our area. We think that's a thing we should highlight because that continues to grow for the Wausau and Marathon County areas. And then as it relates to issues, we're definitely still working to develop these. The issues that we've started to identify include that talent attraction, like continuing to attract people here to be employed here. We want people to come here as the preferred place to live, work, and do business. So, that question of how does the county best support achieving this statement and attracting talent. Higher education, we're definitely seeing changes in what people are desiring from a higher education experience, and we know this will have implications on our workforce and our economy. Technology will continue to be an issue, including increased use of AI and automation, and how that will impact our workforce and our ability to foster economic growth. Childcare challenges and developing, we also identified here a collaborative approach to economic development, just like what we talked about with water quality, a collaborative approach versus working in silos to bring to grow the economy here in Marathon County. Unique to this chapter, this is actually broken out into 3 goals: an education goal, a workforce development goal, and an economic development goal. We don't have that in any of the other chapters, but it was broken out for this one just to focus each area a little bit more. I won't read through all of them, but I did put a couple questions at the end for people to consider in terms of economic development. What can the county do to be more proactive versus reactive as it relates to economic growth and development? And are there ways the county can be a more supportive partner to the surrounding municipalities who are more directly involved in the education, workforce, and economic development in our county? So I'll open it up for questions and comment there.
Questions, comments for Chapter 10? Supervisor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair Gibbs. 2 things. One is NACO, National Association of Counties, just did a report on the future of work and identified a number of issues. You might want to take a look at that and see if there's anything relevant to Marathon County. But and secondly, the Chamber of Commerce is going through a process of updating their strategic plan, and I know that Jerry Klein and others were involved in helping with that effort. We may want to pay attention to what that strategic plan identifies as critical issues. I know talent attraction and retention is one of those, but if there are other things that might be of value to us in developing the comp plan.
Okay, thank you. Other Supervisor Fischbach, please.
Thank you, Chair. I like the idea of the regionalization, the economic development approach. We do have a municipalities agreement within Marathon County. It's a bit dated at this point, but there has been work on that in the past, and I think including all the other partner organizations into that as well, just not the municipalities, but it needs to be that greater context of Visitors Bureau, chambers, everybody working together. I think that's a good point.
Vice Chair Dickinson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So one of the objectives that's stated in here is support the Central Wisconsin Airport, but there's really not anything in the entire chapter about the importance of the airport for some of the discussions we'd had in economic development, in talent attraction and retention, in tourism, et cetera. So I think that's something that we could embellish in the chapter.
Okay.
Other discussion, other comments?
All right,
All right, we'll move on.
chapter 11. Starts on page 51 of the packet. Recreation, tourism, and natural resources. Quite a few small updates in here and a lot of different plans that we've added over the last 10 years, so make sure to take a look at that. There's been definitely a lot of work going on as it relates to tourism and recreation in this area. So lots of different things we highlighted, including, getting the Wausau Ignite, the state trail expansion, things with the Ice Age Trail, different amenities that we keep adding or expanding within our area, which is great. I can say, speaking as a transplant, this is one of the things that drew me to this area. So, so this was the fun chapter to go through for sure. In terms of the issues that we have identified, going down to page way down here, sorry. There we go. So several issues that have been identified for the recreation chapter, including just sort of an update as it relates to that intergovernmental coordination piece in terms of how we manage our parks in Marathon County and what we can do as it relates to what state statute allows us to do and our powers there. An issue related to jurisdictional roles and continued trail development. Parks and Forestry also recommended adding an issue related to water quality and water recreation, just in the sense that we are starting to see some different patterns or ways that people may be using water based on water quality. We have the issue related to county forest land acquisition, and I think the point that was trying to be made there is, I know there's always a lot of discussion about that target number of acres, and regardless of the right number of acres, the focus should be on maintaining the ability to acquire natural resources of significance if they become available, is what Parks and Forestry has emphasized. Conservancy continues to be an issue in the sense that we do not have a conservancy park classification, which would then allow us to designate, acquire, preserve, develop lands. So just something that Parks, Rec, and Forestry has pointed out, that we might want to create that conservancy park classification. Historic park facilities, enhancing awareness and access to the visitor amenities, in terms of that we have an abundance of these amenities and that we should really work on a regional level to highlight and promote those things, as they are a treasure to our area. And then we also talked with Parks and Forestry about an issue that we should get added in there related to the changing recreation patterns. This is often related to changing weather patterns, so they are starting to see differences in how sometimes our parks and forestry lands are getting used as the weather patterns change. And then we changed the objectives quite a little bit here in terms of the recreation, tourism, cultural resources goal and the objectives there. So support and promote access to quality, accessible, affordable recreation opportunities. We added one that was to promote tourism throughout the region with a strong emphasis on promotion of outdoor recreational tourism. Encourage the protection of historically significant buildings and sites from development impacts, and then develop a plan to modify recreation offerings in response to weather pattern changes in winter. We did put a question in here too about the increase and expand awareness of cultural resources. I think in working through this chapter, one of the things CPZ and Parks were talking a lot about was we were wondering what is the county's role there. So I don't know that we know exactly. So we wanted to put that question to you all. So.
Questions, comments? Supervisor Marash, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my question with this section on page 73 with the objectives is how? How are we going to promote the tourism? How are we going to encourage the protection? Are we going to be advertising? Is that something that we're going to need to put in the budget? I guess that's kind of my question for it being in there. Thanks.
Yeah, I know, I mean, I could definitely bring forth, I know Jamie has been involved in some of the talks and efforts related to that. I can't give you the specifics, but we could definitely bring some more information back related to that, so.
I think that's a great question, and that's kind of it's been my experience with the comprehensive plan. If you look at the full version, right, we have all these objectives, and then underneath, we get into just what you talked about, that is the development of the strategies and then the prioritization of what strategies we move forward at any given time. And that absolutely, to your last point, is something that the county board has to allocate funds through the budget. I think some of the things that we have done to promote tourism or be involved in the advocacy around others promoting that tourism, like Lori referenced, we are active relative to the CVB, the Convention and Visitors Bureau. Jamie Polly is engaged in those meetings and part of that team. When you funded the work with Uniquely Wisconsin, and we're currently in the process of finalizing some videos, some of those do relate to tourism. We're actually one of the videos that's coming out right now, we're going to be finalized in the near future, I should say, relates to the Dells of the Eau Claire, which is a very popular across the state park. It's actually, I believe, it was recently rated as the most popular county park in the state of Wisconsin. Don't hold me to that. That's what I believe that's accurate. Perhaps it's not precise. But to your point, you have to, at the end of the day, these are great objectives. Then it's build out the strategies. And at the end of the day, it's, are you going to allocate money either directly or approve staff time through the creation of new programs or things like that? But I think that's that's the next step. And what is the county's role? I think that's been mentioned a number of times. I know the vice chair, and when he went around and we gave the update on the strategic plan process, referenced that a number of times, really taking another look at the language, and this is a great page to highlight that. The language used to be ensure access to quality, accessible, and affordable recreation opportunities. Well, is that really all is that something within the county's ability to control? Or is it more important to say things like, hey, we're going to support and promote? So please provide that exact feedback like Lori is looking for relative to what is the true county role.
And one additional thing I'll add is what we are working with the departments on now too is those action strategies in chapter 13. So where they could tie action strategies to these updated objectives. So that might give a little more definition to some of the ways they're thinking we could work towards these objectives. So that'll be coming here in the next couple months. So
Supervisor Robinson, please.
Thank you. A couple of suggestions. I don't see a reference to ATV, UTV trail development. That's been a critical issue for the infrastructure committee, but I think is important from a recreational perspective. We also don't reference the bike trails at the landfill or the Granite Peak bike trails. And then there's also no reference to Holtz-Krause or Peoples Field in there as a regional facility. And it plays an important role in bringing tournaments in.
okay, we'll double check that. So okay. I think the Peoples is in there. So yeah. Okay.
Other comments, other suggestions? Lance, please.
So I apologize, this isn't a developed thought, and I don't know what chapter it would lie in. I think it, in some sense, is economic development related, but also can relate to tourism. One of the things that Jim has brought up recently, and again, it's not developed, but I think Lori was part of one of the conversations. There is and I'm probably going to use the wrong term, but this idea of wetland acreage banking, that when there's economic development opportunities and they're adjacent to wetlands and they need to essentially fill those in to use for site development, there's an opportunity, as I understand it, and I don't know much in this area, but the counties or municipalities have acquired or created wetland areas so that when a developer pursuant to existing economic development regulations has to replace wetlands that they've had to fill in, that there is an available resource for them to do that. And I see Jeff nodding in the back, so he knows more about this than I do, which is not a high bar in this regard. But I wonder if that's something we can look at to be available for, again, not only a resource for economic development when those developers need that, but my sense is that those wetlands also can create some form of opportunity in the recreation and tourism area for all of the sorts of sporting and recreation things that happen in wetlands. But I don't know if that's something that the leadership of the board would like us to look into. And without going into the details, Jeff or Lori, if you guys want to elaborate on what I'm trying to say, that would be perhaps helpful.
Do you want to add anything, Jeff, to that? I know you're familiar, so.
What I think he's talking about would be wetland mitigation areas. So if we currently have wetlands in our park system, or if we're acquiring additional lands that may be wetlands, we could use that as a mitigation area. So part of our, like the sanitary sewer service area map, it has areas that are environmentally sensitive, so you try to keep development out of that, but it doesn't mean certain wetlands can't be filled, because they can. And if we have an area that provides an opportunity for a developer to purchase, which is their mitigation element, then that can help fund that area in preservation and perpetuity. So it's a great idea, great concept.
Other thoughts? Is that something that we should be looking into, at least in the initial stages? I would say it's something that we should actually look into. Absolutely. Okay, any other discussions on that chapter? All right, Lori, please
Right, the
continue.
last chapter we have here today is Chapter 12, Intergovernmental Cooperation. We did go through and add a couple different, this is really around all the ways we coordinate in the region. I have a feeling we're still missing some because we went through and added, but I still feel like every day we're talking to someone and realizing there is more. A couple things, let's see, highlighting some of the things we added include, we didn't have North Central Healthcare in the 2016, so getting that in there. The Regional Forensics Center, I think we built out the area on the solid waste facility. I think those were 3 of the big ones we added in, but definitely take a close look at this, because I know you all know the ways too that we're working regionally, and we might be missing some still in here, so we want to make sure we've got them. In terms of, this is a fairly short chapter, so but in terms of issues, the issues are kind of remaining the same from the last time around in terms of regionalization, regulatory structure, service consolidation, and volunteerism, tax-based competition, transportation coordination, and zoning coordination. So those haven't changed a lot in terms of, those are going to continue to be regional issues that where we need cooperation to make progress or address concerns. So, and then in terms of the goal, I think this is actually one where we did not change very much in the goals or objectives at all, because we were pretty happy with this one still. So the goal remains Marathon County as a cooperative and collaborative partner who works with other municipalities and organizations to provide services most effectively and efficiently to residents. And the objectives support coordination of development and planning activities, promote technology and resource sharing, encourage proactive conflict resolution, promote cost-effective public services, and encourage participation in all levels of government.
John, Supervisor Robinson, please.
Thank you. I noticed that you included TIF in the discussion about tax-based competition, but you didn't put it in intergovernmental tools and regulations. And the EDC committee recommended applying the 10 standards to it. And I think Supervisor Pfeffer could offer an amendment. I'd like to see a little bit more of an expansion of the discussion on TIF in a tool, but the need for review.
Okay.
Other discussion? Supervisor Marash, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's been brought to my attention that Oneida County, and I think this would possibly be the section that this would pertain to, that they have an objective that all state and federal agencies and lands utilizing federal money shall coordinate with Oneida County's comprehensive plan for all land planning and management activities on state and federal lands within the jurisdiction of the county to ensure consistent and harmonized policies across the 3 levels of government. It goes on to say notification, consultation, and coordination with the county is required at the earliest time possible for any land planning and/or proposed action by state and/or federal agencies or nonprofit organizations, or for any change in existing activities, newly permitted activities, or changes in regulations that may affect the economic basis of the county. Consultation and coordination with the county is necessary to determine the full scope and potential social and economic effects of proposed activities. The county considers that consultation and coordination must include all impacted towns on all forest management issues. The policy is that Oneida County requires that all federal and state agencies and lands utilizing federal or state funding coordinate any land use activities with the county and impacted towns in compliance with applicable federal and state laws and purposes of those laws within the county. So I just bring that up for a point of discussion if that's something that the group thinks could be incorporated at all. Thank you.
Open it up for discussion.
I have not read that yet, so I'd have to read it a little bit more, I think, to give staff comments on it, but.
Yeah, and I guess the question becomes, what does coordination mean? And, coordination is a great word. However, does that mean restrictions? Does that mean, that's really the ultimate question on when you talk about coordination. What are we trying to coordinate? We'd have to look into that more as far as what are they trying to coordinate.
Can I offer? If I can get from you after where that is, we'll take a look at it from the staff side. I do know from speaking with my colleagues in kind of that area, they certainly do have much more federal and state forest land. But I think the idea, certainly we can incorporate, and we do a fair amount of that. The discussion about the Granite Peak and Rib Mountain State Park bike expansion, the county has been involved in that from the very early stages. So I think we can certainly incorporate those ideas and perhaps some maps relative to federal and state lands in the county would be helpful in that. Just thinking out loud, but we'll certainly pull that language and take a look at it.
Supervisor Robinson.
I was just going to make a similar comment. I know that Dave Mack at one time had pulled together a map of state and federal ownership of property in Marathon County, and it wasn't as significant as Oneida County. And so we might want to take a look at that, but I would think that we're somewhat limited in the areas covered. Rib Mountain State Park as part of their master plan, I think, has provisions for local government input. And I don't know if much of the meat is in, but there's a limited state and federal ownership in the county.
I think the only federal land that I'm aware of is the federal land at the old radar site out in is it town of Harrison.
I'm not aware of a lot of federal land within the county. I know we were looking on the transportation side, we were looking into something called the Federal Lands Access Program to see if we had anything that would align there, and we still don't have actually answers back from the DOT on that. But yeah, we can definitely look. So.
Supervisor Pfiffer, please.
Yeah, without knowing the concept or having read it before, I think it potentially, talking about coordinating could be an objective of the plan, but to what I was hearing sounded more like a requirement. The comp plan isn't a ordinance or regulation on its own. It's summarizing existing things that we have or what things that we're looking at too. So maybe it's better to look at an objective of establishing a policy or establishing coordination on it without, knowing more about it. Just thinking about it from what a comp plan actually is.
Okay, other thoughts, other discussion? Vice Chair Dickinson, please.
I was just going to go off topic here, but on school districts, one of the things that could be mentioned is the Marathon County Special Education Program, which includes the birth to 3 as well, as far as the intergovernmental cooperation.
Other discussion? Supervisor Pfeffert, please.
Just with economic development on page 79 in the packet, it says Marathon County Development Corporation, McDevco, is the county-funded economic development corporation. I don't know if that's completely accurate. Obviously, Marathon County provides some funding to them, but, over the years, that's been lessened. So you could state that, I don't even know if is there a
Funding
formal
partner.
name even, Marathon County Development Corporation, or is it McDevco at this point? I think it's McDevco too.
Other discussion? All right, I thank you very, very much.
One
Go
thing
ahead,
I'll
please.
just add is, I think at this point, we have Chapter 3, the Health and Human Services, and Chapter 13 still forthcoming for a first look, and then we'd be looking to compile one big draft for everyone to start taking a look at later this summer, so.
Okay, look forward to those updates, and thank you for all of your diligent work. Okay, we are down to item number 6, next meeting. Next meeting is scheduled for July 10th, 3 o'clock. Committee members are asked to bring ideas for future discussion. With that, we are down to item number 7. What's the pleasure? Motion by Supervisor Marash, second by Vice Chair Dickinson to adjourn. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.